They called him crazy. While the world celebrated record profits, Michael Burry was counting cracks in the foundation. A one-eyed doctor turned investor who spent nights buried in mortgage data that no one else wanted to see. He saw what banks refused to admit, that the entire system was built on lies wrapped in confidence. They mocked him, sued him, and abandoned him. But when the world collapsed in 2008, his madness became prophecy. This is not just the story of a man who predicted the crash. It's the story of how truth sounds like insanity when profit depends on denial. Michael Burry was never meant to be a Wall Street legend. He was a doctor, trained to diagnose symptoms, to find patterns in the chaos of the human body. But somewhere between medical charts and patient records, he found a new obsession: numbers, markets, data. They spoke to him with a clarity people never could. At night, while others slept, he scrolled through financial reports line by line. He wasn't looking for trends, he was looking for truth. Every number told a story, and Burry could hear it whisper. What he found in those pages didn't fit the world's version of reality. In the early 2000s, he created Scion Capital. It was not a typical fund. It was an experiment in precision, run from a small office where the lights never went out. His methods were strange, his strategies unorthodox, but his results were undeniable. He didn't chase opinions or headlines. He followed math, and math never lied. As he dug deeper into the housing market, something felt wrong. The data was clean, but the logic was broken. Mortgages were being handed to anyone who asked, no matter their income or credit. The system was feeding on its own illusion of safety. Every chart pointed up, but Burry saw the ground crumbling beneath. He wasn't a Wall Street insider. He was the glitch in its system. Alone in his office, surrounded by screens filled with numbers and noise, he realized the illusion wasn't silent anymore. It was screaming. The economy's heartbeat was racing toward collapse, and no one wanted to admit it. The closer he looked at the numbers, the louder the illusion became. What Burry uncovered was not a market. It was a machine. A system built so perfectly that no one thought it could fail. Banks were creating loans faster than they could count them, handing out mortgages to anyone with a signature and a pulse. Those loans were bundled together, sliced into pieces, and sold as bonds. Then those bonds were repackaged again, layered so deep that even the people selling them no longer understood what they were. It was a chain reaction disguised as innovation. The same institutions that created the risk were also betting against it, ensuring their own lies and calling it genius. Every player in the system was making money, and that made the deception invisible. The illusion of endless growth had become the world's favorite addiction. Burry ran the numbers again and again. The math didn't lie. The loans were built on fantasy. Millions of Americans were living in homes they could never afford, and the entire financial system was pretending it didn't matter. He realized the market wasn't just unstable, it was impossible. That's when he found the loophole no one was using: credit default swaps, a way to bet against the housing market itself. To most investors, it sounded insane. Who would bet against the thing that everyone believed could never fail? But Burry didn't believe. He knew. He started buying protection, one contract at a time, quietly positioning his fund for the collapse he saw coming. Wall Street laughed. "You can't short America," they said. "Housing never falls." But Burry wasn't betting against America. He was betting against greed, against denial, against the illusion that profit could erase risk forever. He didn't just see a bubble, he saw the pin. When Michael Burry placed his billion-dollar short, he expected resistance. What he did not expect was to become the enemy of his own investors. The same people who had trusted his genius now accused him of losing his mind. They demanded answers, demanded their money back, demanded that he stop betting against the dream everyone believed in. The bank smiled politely, happy to take his premiums. To them, he was just another eccentric trader paying for insurance on something that could never burn. They mocked his conviction while cashing his checks. On paper, they were winning. In reality, they were building the fuse that would light the world on fire. Months passed. The market refused to break. Housing prices climbed higher. News anchors cheered the boom. Analysts celebrated record profits. Every data point told Burry he was right, but every headline told him he was wrong. His investors sent threats. His fund bled cash. The pressure closed in. He stopped taking calls. He locked his office doors. Sleep became rare, food optional, peace impossible. The data on his screen glowed like a warning light only he could see. Each day the illusion grew stronger, and so did the denial of those who needed to believe it. He wasn't fighting the market. He was fighting belief itself. He watched as greed drowned logic, as billions moved through hands that refused to question where it came from. He waited in silence, the weight of every decision pressing down on him. The world was celebrating its own destruction, and he was the only one preparing for the aftermath. And then the first cracks appeared. It happened all at once. The market that had climbed for years began to shatter from within. Mortgage bonds that were once labelled untouchable collapsed overnight. The same institutions that had mocked Michael Burry now stared at screens filled with red. Banks that had laughed in comfort suddenly begged for liquidity. The noise of profit turned into the sound of panic. The world woke up to a truth it had refused to see. Homes were empty. Loans were worthless. Confidence was gone. The economy was built on air, and that air had finally escaped. Inside his office, Burry watched the chaos unfold in silence. The trades that once made him an outcast now made him a fortune. His fund soared as the global system crumbled. Investors who had threatened to sue him now begged for forgiveness. They called him a genius, a visionary, a man who saw the storm before it came. But there was no joy in it. He didn't celebrate, didn't smile, didn't boast. Instead, he sent one final letter to his investors. In it, he wrote one sentence that defined his legacy. "I will never participate in this madness again." Outside, the world scrambled for survival. Wall Street pleaded for bailouts. The same executives who dismissed him as a fool now called him lucky. Governments rushed to rescue the very machine that had caused the collapse. Nothing had been learned, only delayed. Michael Burry closed his office, turned off his screens, and disappeared from the noise. The world had broken exactly as he said it would. But the cost was too high to call it victory. He was right. But being right in a broken world is not victory. It is survival. Years passed, and Michael Burry returned to a world that looked richer but was no wiser. The numbers were bigger, the screens were faster, but the patterns were the same. He warned again. About passive investing that moved billions without thought. About inflation ignored until it burned. About bubbles dressed as innovation, built on faith, not fundamentals. His words echoed across social media, dismissed by the same voices that once called him paranoid. "The same illusion repeats," he said. "The same arrogance returns." The system had learned how to survive disaster, not how to prevent it. The world had forgotten the pain of collapse. Cheap money made everyone feel rich again. The same greed that fueled the housing bubble now hid behind new names: tech stocks, crypto, leveraged funds. The faces had changed, but the psychology never did. Michael Burry didn't predict doom for fame. He did it because he understood cycles. He knew that belief without balance always ends in collapse, that when markets rise too perfectly, it is not stability. It is pressure waiting to break. He stood apart once more, warning that the next crisis would come not from mortgages, but from complacency. From a generation that had never seen failure, building its confidence on borrowed time. Those who see the truth are rarely thanked for it. They are called pessimists, alarmists, prophets of doom. But history always circles back to them when the dust settles. The world will crash again, not because of numbers, but because of human nature. The same blindness that made 2008 inevitable is still alive, still celebrated, still rewarded. If this gave you a new perspective, don't just scroll away. Hit subscribe. This is Economic Chronicles, where history exposes the present and the future is written in the lessons we refuse to learn.